Hi guys, happy Easter! I hope you had a beautiful celebration on Easter Sunday. But let's talk a bit about what is to come over the next 50 days. Because as Catholics, Easter isn't just one day. Alright guys, so we have made it through Lent, through those 40 days of fasting, prayers, and almsgiving. Hopefully you have made some progress towards Christ, in your relationship with Christ, in your relationship with others, growing in virtue, weeding out vices, and just having really spent Lent in this really beautiful place to grow closer to our Lord. Now, that is Easter. And Easter is 50 days. It's called Eastertide. And it starts on Easter Sunday and lasts all the way until Pentecost Sunday. And so let's talk a bit about what happens in those 50 days and what you can do to make it really stand out in your liturgical year. That it doesn't just end on Sunday and then we go back to normal. No, the church gives us 50 days of feasting and rejoicing. If you look at the calendar, Pentecost Sunday is on June 9th. So now until June 9th is a time of feasting. So what can we do to really make Eastertide stand out for us? What can we do to really honor God and to enjoy these 50 days? You know, while the rest of the world is just kind of moving on towards spring and thinking about summer, we're supposed to be contemplating Jesus' resurrection, His salvation, opening heaven, you know, conquering death, and just all the beauty that comes from, and all the hope that comes from the Easter season. So one classic way is to keep your Easter decorations up. And I'm not talking about the eggs or the bunnies, but I'm talking about the flowers. I'm talking about if you have crosses that say, you know, He is risen. Contemplate the glorious mysteries of the Rosary. You could do, you know, for Lent, we did the Sorrowful Mysteries every day. You could switch that up, and for every day you do the Rosary, pray the glorious mysteries, because that is what this season is about. So I have a book called Catholic Home, and it talks about the different days of this week in particular, the octave of Easter. And the octave of Easter ends on Divine Mercy Sunday. So that is a really great day too. And I will put down below as well as up here my video all about Divine Mercy. That is absolutely one of my favorite devotions. I love the Divine Mercy Chaplet. I'm praying the novena right now. So that is something to think about as I move through this week. But there's so much more. So Easter Monday is considered a day of rest. This is the day that Jesus showed up on the road of Emmaus. And so traditionally people go on like a rambling walk and kind of just contemplate all that happened on Easter Sunday. Easter Thursday is considered All Souls Day of Easter. So this is the day we can remember the dead. We can go visit, you know, a cemetery. We can think about our loved ones and pray for their souls. You know that we pray for the dead because we don't know when people go to heaven or if they go to spend some time in purgatory first. And so we pray for our dead just in case, and God will use those prayers for somebody else if your loved one is already in heaven, which we all hope that is the case, right? And then Easter Friday is actually traditionally a day of pilgrimage. So maybe you have a place in town, maybe you have somewhere an hour away, and just take your kids with you, and I don't know if they're in school, but if they're not in school, or even pull them out of school and go on a pilgrimage, or maybe do that on Saturday. So the way that I would approach this is, one, to look at your calendar. What's happening between now and June 8th, Pentecost Sunday? And we know that Divine Mercy Sunday is coming up this week. This week, St. Mark the Evangelist has his feast day on the 25th. Our Lady of Good Counsel is on the 26th. Let's see here. Sunday, like I said, is Divine Mercy Sunday. It's also St. Gianna's feast day. And then Monday, the 29th, you have St. Catherine of Siena and St. George. So, you know, keeping the saints' feast days can be a really beautiful way of maintaining that Easter celebration, especially if it's something you don't typically do. Now, we know that May is the month of Mary, and so there's specific things you can do all throughout May, which also falls in through the whole season of Eastertide, that you can do to honor Mary. If you don't pray the Rosary every day, do that. Or pray Decade every day, pray Memorare. Learn a new Marian prayer. There's so many beautiful ones. So I'm going to talk about all that in just a minute. But let's keep going through Eastertide. So Monday, May 1st is St. Joseph the Worker. the next like big section of events during Eastertide starts May 28th. So Tuesday, May 28th, we have the Sacred Heart of Jesus. Wednesday, May 29th, we have the Immaculate Heart of Mary. And then on Thursday, May 30th, we celebrate the Ascension. And then on Friday, May 31st, we celebrate the Visitation. And then Pentecost falls on Sunday, June 9th. And then after that, we are back in ordinary time. But of course, there are celebrations of the saints throughout that time. So, I don't know about you, but during Lent and for part of Easter, I had a devotional that I read every day, as long with other things. But I don't want that to stop once Lent's over, right? And I don't want your devotional, your time with Jesus, your special efforts that you've made during Lent to stop just because Lent's now over. And so I have a bunch of books here that I want to recommend. I'm going to start off with the books I just got and tell you why I got them. And then I will touch on some other books that you can use. And you can kind of get an idea of maybe, what you want out of Easter. Do you want to read a story of a saint? Do you want to grow in your apologetics? Do you, so that you can share this good news with others? There's so many different kinds of books out there that you can read. And so we're going to go through my book haul and see if something is interesting to you. The important thing is that we're all different, and the Catholic Church gives us all the ability to be evangelists in a different way. And so some of it's through actions and some of it's through words. And so there's always a book out there that can help you in one way or another in your growth in faith, but also your ability to share it with others. All right, so without further ado, let's get going through the books that I got. So the first book I got after watching Unplanned was this book, Persuasively Pro-Life, How to Talk About Our Culture's Toughest Issue. This is by Trent Horn, one of my favorite authors, and the foreword is by Father Frank Pavoni, who is like the Catholic priest about pro-life issues. So I've gone through it a little bit. It's good. And he talks a lot about, in the beginning, about how to be an apologist. Like what that looks like, how to lead with compassion, how to talk to others, but more importantly, how to listen. And so this is a really important book in terms of the conversation about pro-life, because a lot of people who are vehemently pro-choice have pain there. And so this book addresses that. So if Unplanned touched you in some way, this would be a great thing to read through, a great book to read through the Easter season and really get a deeper sense of the issues that you can possibly help a mother save her child's life and her own life, in that way, because we know that abortion always hurts two people, the mother and the child. The next book I got is a doozy. It is the Handbook of Catholic Apologetics. This one is really amazing. I've read just a little bit. It's a textbook. So someone on Amazon's like, definitely not a sit on the couch and chill and read book. It's a study book, but it covers just such a great topics, kind of the bigger topics of our faith. Logic and reason, the existence of God's nature, creation and evolution, providence and free will, those bigger things that honestly, I was never really educated about as a child growing up in the Catholic Church. There's very philosophical, but it does get into salvation, objective truth, heaven and hell, the problem of evil, the Bible's historical reliability. So if you know someone who doesn't think that the Bible is reliable, you could go to this section and study it and really get an idea of what's going on. And it's written in a question and answer format, kind of like, is it Summa Theologica? I just finished Patrick Madrid's book, Search and Rescue, How to Bring Your Family of Friends into or Back into the Catholic Faith. I would recommend this for any Catholic who has a family member, who has a coworker, anybody who they interact with and who is willing to talk to them about the faith. And even not, it has such good prayers in here and things that I would just recommend this book. I think every single Catholic in the world knows someone who's either fallen away from the faith, who's heard about them growing up Catholic, but they're not anymore. Maybe they don't practice anything at all. Maybe they become a Protestant. So this is just a really, really good book. What's really cool, though, is in the back, it has a reading plan, is what he calls it. There's 3 phases in his reading plan. And the first phase is preliminary, and he has all these great books in here. And then he has intermediate, where you kind of get into like the higher level stuff, and things like The Lamb's Supper by Scott Hahn's in there, Pope Fiction, which is a really great book for if you know someone who's struggling with the Pope. And then this handbook is in the intermediate level. Hail Holy Queen by Scott Hahn, all those things. And then there's an advanced one as well, which I won't be touching for a while, but Basics of Biblical Greek. Oh my gosh, The Spirit of Catholicism. So many good things. So I just really highly recommend this book. It was a very fast read. I think I read a chapter a day. So it took me, I don't know, a little bit more than a week to read through. And now I'm starting on the suggested readings that he has. So one of the suggested readings he has were his Surprised by Truth books. So as a cradle Catholic, I have a hard time wrapping my head around Protestants sometimes and how they could just ignore the Catholic Church. It's like, it's the fullness of truth. What's there to understand? There we have the Eucharist. What's there to understand? We have the early church fathers were Catholics. What's there to understand, right? You can kind of get in this headspace of, I don't get it. What's the holdup? This book will help you if you were a cradle Catholic and you would have a hard time understanding your Protestant brothers and sisters. Like, wow. You can sit down and read like one story a day easily. And I literally wept for joy with the Protestant when they came into the Catholic Church. And we just celebrated so many beautiful souls entering into the church, entering into the fullness of truth, receiving those sacraments, receiving that sanctifying grace that comes with the sacraments. And so these stories are so joyful and so good, and there's apologetics in here, there's Bible references, there's just so much in here. So if you want something that you can kind of sit down and just read and then mull over through the day, these are fantastic. I literally want to get this book for every Protestant I know. I'm going to try to see if I can get like one of my friends to read it. It's so good. And I'm really, really happy. There's a first edition that's kind of hard to find, and then there's a number 3. There might even be a number 4. And you guys, you can find all of these books in my Amazon storefront. I love my Amazon storefront because it just makes it really easy for you guys to shop what I recommend. I have 2 lists that you're going to find these books on. Either what I'm currently reading, which most of these are going to fall into that category because I read like a ridiculous amount of books at once. And then I also have a Catholic favorites book. So if I have finished a Catholic book and I think it's worth your time to read, it'll be in there, and sometimes there's some overlap as well. All right, so then a couple of the books that Patrick Madrid recommended was The Introduction to the Devout Life by St. Francis de Sales. I already have Roses Among Thorns, and I love it. I cannot recommend that book enough. It's just like little snippets that are really deep and make you think, but they're really short. This is really like how to have a devout life. He writes to this woman, Philothea, on how to be devout. And so there's these meditations, and so I'm taking one meditation a day. I'm trying to like really do what he says and then keep going. But you can definitely knock out a few chapters in one sitting. So good. I can't recommend this enough. Everybody who's Catholic should read this book. Really, everybody should read this book, but definitely Catholics. Okay, another one that he recommended is Theology for Beginners, and this is by F.J. Sheed. That's the important name to get. And I think this is actually the translation you want to get for St. Augustine's Confessions as well. I came across that recently. But I don't even know how to describe this. This is a theology book, and there's short little snippets. It reads like philosophy. What did I read here? I read about Jesus recently. So he's talking about reading the Bible, and G.K. Chesterton says that we should embark upon a reading of the Gospels as though we had never read them before. Almost as deed as though we don't know the story. So, I love that, right? Like we can get to a place, especially this time of year, where we're like, oh yeah, we know the story. Oh yeah, we know the story. But really thinking about each line of sacred scripture and what it means and what it's saying and how does Jesus how is Jesus coming across? He's not this like, I love you, kumbaya guy. No, he has some intense words. He says, unless you eat the bread of life and drink the cup of salvation, you have no life within you. He says so many things that are really hard. All the parables and what could happen when you don't follow Christ. Like, it's not for the faint of heart. And so looking at the Gospels with those fresh eyes can be really amazing. And Mother Angelica is really good at this. She took like the little story of Jesus walking across the water and just broke it down, image by image, using her imagination and thinking about all the characters and just diving in really well. It was so good. And we do have to always read the Bible with the idea of what is the author trying to tell us? What is their perspective? It's not about our perspective. It's about what the author was trying to tell us in those moments. And we know that each gospel author had a different purpose for writing the gospel. And that's why a Catholic study Bible is so important, because it breaks down what the perspectives were of each of the 4 gospel writers. All right, and then one of the preliminary books he recommended was The Fathers of the Church, an introduction to the first Christian teachers. I am really excited about this because I have been wanting to find some kind of book about the early church fathers, and I just didn't know where to look, and so that's why the book lists in here are amazing, and just, you can't go wrong with anything that Patrick Woodrow says in the first place. But so this has the list of the church fathers, and then it breaks it down. So right now I'm on St. Clement. That is the first person they talk to, and they have his letter to the Corinthians in here, which is like his only written work. And so you have that, and then the next one's going to be St. Ignatius of Antioch, and again, more writings of theirs. So it's just full of a little bit of like history on the person, and then their writings, and the Catholic Church is just steeped in this, 100, 200, 300, 480, 700, it's all there. And so, again, to be deep in history is to cease to be Protestant. I love that quote. So those are all of the quote-unquote new book hauls. But I wanted to also talk about other ways that you can address this Eastertide. One way you can do that is by thinking about consecrating yourself to Mary. This has been a life-changing experience. I just feel really close to Mary now. And the consecration prayer, I like to read it once in a while because it's just really, it's really good. I mean, I just know, like every time I pray for somebody, I know Mary is taking that and making it so much better than my feeble prayers. It's really good. So there's a 33 Days of Morning Glory is the book I used. And then the Marian Consecration for Kids. I know some people get this for their kids' first Holy Communion. It's a beautiful gift. So there you go. The other thing that I have is I have this book, Every Day with Mary. I talked about this last year during the month of May. And it just goes through and it actually talks about a virtue for each month. So if we are in April is hope, and May is gentleness, and June is joy. So it has a little Bible verse, and then it has a reflection by an author, and then it has like an action item and then a prayer. So I just think this book is beautiful. You could read it over and over and over again. And I mean, you just can't have enough Mary in your life, especially as a mom. Okay, one book that I haven't talked about for a while that would be a really beautiful thing to work through for the Easter time is this A Mind at Peace, Reclaiming an Ordered Soul in the Age of Distraction. So I am about, 2/3 of the way through. I need to go back and probably review what I highlighted, but I highlighted a lot. But this is really good. But if you feel like, maybe for Lent you gave up your phone and now you're just like, oh, like what, how do I go back in and reincorporate social media, or reincorporate my phone, or reincorporate, what's going on with that technology, but in a way where I don't fall back into old habits. This book is going to really, really help you get there. Finally, the last 2 things. So I talked about it's Divine Mercy Sunday coming up, and you can't go wrong with working through the Diary of St. Maria Faustina. And I love this book because Jesus' words to her are in bold. You literally could just spend 10 minutes, or 5 minutes just thinking about what he has to say. So this will be, again, a beautiful book to work through. It looks really, really thick, but it's small, and there's lots of spaces. So it's, each paragraph is kind of broken out by numbers. I haven't made it very far, but it didn't take me that long to get that far. So, and even then, 50 days, say make a reading plan, kind of break it down, say, okay, well, how many pages are there? This is how many pages I need to read every single day for 50 days to get through St. Faustina's diary. You guys know how it works. You went to school. I would be remiss if I did not mention my ultimate favorite book, Why We're Catholic by Trent Horn. If you have not read this would be a very easy way to spend the next 50 days deepening your faith deepening your understanding of Catholicism. Now, this is like the Cliff Notes version. This is not going to take you deep like this one or any of the books recommended in here. But it is going to give you a solid foundation on what we believe as Catholics. And then you can go down the rabbit hole of whatever, topic you want to. This book is just an important foundation, especially if you didn't get a good catechesis. I think that every Catholic should read this book just to kind of get their head around the truth and what we believe and why we believe it. So with that, you guys, I really hope this was helpful. Please let me know if you're going to choose one of these books or another kind of book or practice to maintain this Easter season and to really focus on, Christ and his resurrection. I know I'm going to have lots of flowers everywhere. I might have some extra decorations up. Maybe have the kids make some he is risen signs, other things like that. But again, I just wanted to share this. I know this was a long video. I know that a year ago, I was just starting out on this journey and I didn't know what books to pick up. I didn't know what was out there. I didn't even know who Scott Hahn was or Patrick Madrid or Tim Staples or Trent Horn or Jimmy Akin. And so now I know, and I want to share those with you guys because I know that every Catholic is on a different point in their journey. You can get to where you want to be, but you have to take one step at a time. So whether that's just conquering social media habits, whether that's deepening your children's faith, which that video is coming out as a collab next week. I'm going to talk about how to raise a cradle Catholic child. So I'm really excited. That's a collab. It's going to be so good. And or whether you just want to get to that deeper place with Jesus, like there's always ways to do that. So with that being said, I'm going to go do some reading. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. That helps other people find it. Share this video if you know another Catholic who you want to encourage them to spend Eastertide deepening their faith. Or if you know a Protestant who's like, what is Eastertide? You can send them over here. All right, so God bless. Have a beautiful Easter, and I will see you again real soon. Bye.